Welcome back as we delve into a very hot topic at the moment, but a vitally important one as we look forward for, I think, the entire country's well-being. President Cyril Ramaphosa signed the, let's call it, controversial National Health Insurance Bill last week, the NHI bill. In fact, it was last week, Wednesday, and it's obviously caused quite a stir amongst many because it potentially does affect all of us. And we delve into the significant change, potentially, and what it means for the country's healthcare system, most importantly. Joining us today is our legal expert who's brilliant at dubbing these things down for us, Eitan Stern, to discuss the details and implications of the NHI. We're going to explore how it aims to transform healthcare. At least that's the notion, and the arguments for and against it, what the immediate and long-term changes that we as citizens can expect. Eitan, thank you so much. I would imagine this is a difficult line for you to walk because it's not fully realized yet. It's a future notion, but the ball has started moving.
For sure.
In quite a dominant way. Once the bill is there, this kind of gives us an intention or a marker of intent. Can you please explain the parameters? Now, what is the National Health Insurance Bill so that we can fully understand the jumping off point?
Sure. At this point, it's an act that's been passed by government, passed and signed into law by the president. So it is the law of the country. What it is, it's a proposed system for a financial system for how South Africa's health system will work. And the idea is that it pulls together all resources that we have for healthcare into one big pool. And so instead of us having a two-tiered system, where we've got public health and private health, it puts it into one system. The whole country will run with what they call universal healthcare, where we all get access, in theory, to healthcare that's paid for by the state.
Where does medical aid go? Is it still there? Does it mean there is now a level above national healthcare once again? Because it's difficult to think about the ecosystem without tiers.
Yeah, so I want to just say one thing at the beginning. It's like a lot of this is proposed, right? This is just an act. It's the idea of upending an entire medical system and reshaping and reworking it is not something which they've figured out or not something which happens overnight. So this thing could take decades if it ever gets implemented. And there's a lot of unanswered questions. But to answer that one, what happens to medical aid and private healthcare? In theory, once the state pays for all medical care, then it should, in theory, for most cases, fall away. There's a law that private medical aid can't pay for anything that the NHI is paid for, but that's only once NHI is fully realized. So in theory, it sounds fantastic. If the state pays for all medical care, then the idea of us needing private medical aid would fall away, and we see that in lots of like European countries. England has their national health system. There is still private care, but it's very limited. And its use cases are limited.
Lots of pros, lots of cons. The idea of a more equitable health system is wonderful. Every child, every hospital, we are down with that. One welfare, I get that. Medical aid is incredibly expensive.
Yes.
To be able to fund something like that for now the other 90% of the population, I would love to know what those numbers actually are in terms of who has private and doesn't at the moment. I would say one of the potential hiccups where we're going to get the money from. Is it a taxation? Is it through directly through another area of government? So what are some of the major pros and cons that have kind of sparked a level of debate because it's quite heated?
Around NHI in general? So, I mean, the pros and cons are pretty obvious in this one, right? The pro, if you can get this right and you have one healthcare system that takes care of all South African citizens, it is fantastic and amazing, and we should all back that, and the private healthcare systems back that, and the hospital back that, and everyone backs that. The con in all of that is just that it doesn't work. And if we've seen, the South African government has a lot of things going for it, but implementing big systems that benefit the country, electricity, trains, etc. They're not fantastic at it, and there's been massive issues of corruption, of inefficiencies, and things don't work. So the big downside to this, there's some constitutional challenges and legal challenges which we can look into, but I think the major downside is, like, if this doesn't work, it's a huge gamble because it upends a core to all of our lives. You've got kids, I've got kids.
Yeah.
Healthcare is, I need to know that we can go, get
kind
healthcare.
Of when you start at the beginning of the month, or I think
100%. So I think, like, everyone wants to make sure that we have places that our families can go to hospitals. That's poor people, rich people. We all need this. We have a system that is very imperfect at the moment. We've got a two-tiered system, public health, which is kind of dysfunctional, but serves the majority of the country. Private health that works really well, but it's really expensive. Neither are perfect. We need to amalgamate these things. The big downside to NHI is the only thing is, can it work? Will it work? Can we afford it? And that is really the thing which is in question. Not should we have a better system, but will this suggestion work?
So we're going to need the stakeholders now to play their part because the bill is there. When we talk about the legal, because this is going to be fought legally before anything else, the emotional conversation is great. We all understand that. When we talk about the unconstitutional element of this, from a legal standpoint, what are the major warning signs here?
So there's a couple there. The biggest one is the government's got an obligation, according to our constitution, to pass laws in order to make sure that we have access to healthcare, right? The big constitutional challenge would be that this does the opposite. It takes away a lot of people's access to healthcare, and it might destroy a system which is in place. So that's sort of the major one. There's other ones as well. You're not allowed to just destroy other businesses and create monopolies.
Especially when they represent this amount of money.
Sure, exactly. Private healthcare discovery, there's a massive company. So that's another one. A third one there is a limit to the amount that you can tax citizens. A big question mark on NHI is, who pays for this thing? And there's a lot of research, a lot of numbers to show that even the plans that are in place, it's unaffordable. South Africa, you have 3 million people in South Africa that contribute 90% of the personal income tax in this country. You have a very small group of people paying for it. And there is actually a limit to the amount that you can ask of businesses and people paying tax. And what might be being asked with NHI is just too much. So those are some of the legal challenges that we're bound to see. So before NHI is actually implemented, there's definitely going to be one or several or numerous court cases to challenge these legal issues.
But that's good. It means it's happening. And it might be a little bit scary for everyone involved, but it's a brave step in the right direction. However this works out, we're asking the questions. We're talking about
100%.
universal healthcare.
Universal healthcare is now a topic in every household, and that's a really good thing because it's an important thing for us to try and get right in this country.
That is a question for another day. Where will the money come from? How will this affect you? I would say don't rush out and drop your medical aid just yet if you are relying on that. A lot more questions than answers at this stage, but that's where we need to be. Stakeholders need to have their voice heard, need to put their hands up. So if you want to have your voice heard, I would imagine that this is the right time to do it as we build up to our election. Start investigating, disseminating yourself, do a bit of research so you can answer those questions yourself. Eitan, we absolutely love you, Guy. Thank you so much for taking us through that.
Such a pleasure.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back as we continue our discussion on your Feel Good Breakfast show around the National Health Insurance Bill, of course, that came into reality last Wednesday. We're chatting to our legal expert and good friend, Eitan Stern. We'll delve into what needs to be improved, added to the public healthcare system right now for the NHI to actually land, to succeed. It's one thing to think, okay, we're going to take the resources that go into medical aid and then we're now going to pump that into the general kind of healthcare system and improve everything to the same standard. That seems almost impossible. What needs to happen to boost the infrastructure in our national health, in the facilities and the resources available? Because those feel like it's a massive disparity between the two.
I guess, Graham, that's the big question. What needs to happen now? I'm not a medical expert. I'm a lawyer.
You're not a civil engineer.
But I suppose this is a big question. How do you improve systems in a country? How do you make things better? The one thing you need to do is finance them. The other thing you need is the right people in place to take a broken system and fix it. And there's been amazing examples of where these things work well and where they don't work well. You know, when I think about this, I look to other issues in South Africa that government has worked on and how they've got them right. So the big one is electricity. We had a massive problem in South Africa, load shedding, and government wasn't able to effectively run Eskom and energy generation. Now that the system is improving, how has it happened? It's happened with a mixture between private companies stepping in,
more stakeholders,
public and private companies and private companies working together to fix the system. Now the downside of electricity is that it had to get to the point that it literally broke. The lights went out for them to fix it. I'm hoping we don't get to that with health. Some people would say we're already at that point. The system is completely broken, and that's why we're fixing it. But I imagine the solution to this is going to be government effectively listen to stakeholders in the medical field, doctors, hospitals, health insurers to fix it. The worry is that that hasn't happened. Many people say that it's not, that it's not a coincidence that the 2 weeks before the election, this has passed through. There's even been some ANC MPs or ANC politicians telling supporters that after the election they can walk into any hospital and get served. That is certainly not true. My hope is that this isn't just electioneering and that the government has an actual intent to try to fix the system. But that's what we're going to need to wait to see. It doesn't happen overnight and we don't know the answer.
And it's not just the people you need to win over. The doctors need to buy into this. The very highly paid doctors, surgeons, specialists who kind of make up that ecosystem. When we talk about the top tier or the tip of the medical spear, we need to keep them in the country. And I think, unfortunately, we've gone on the days of where doctors came from all over the world to work in Barra to get a taste of the real life, some real doctoring. There was this pride around how we did medicine in South Africa.
First heart transplant.
First heart transplant is where my babies have been born, in that same hospital. So we understand the history of the strength of South African medicine. We get that. Our doctors are amazing. How do you see this affecting them? How do we keep those doctors? And I know you're not an expert again in healthcare, but this speaks to a different battle being fought internally.
Exactly. So I can't speak from a doctor's perspective, but I can speak about the discourse that's happening. And that's one, and we were talking about it before we came on camera, and that's one about public trust. Right? There is a lot of distrust around government running systems. And what you need for the system is, the government's answer is, look, if we create a better system where it's all being paid for by the state and we've got a much better system around it, doctors will be paid better, hospitals will be paid better, the money will be a lot simpler.
So the baseline moves up. It's not just the top tier that benefits.
There's a lot of distrust. You've got a lot of doctors at the moment living in South Africa that are unemployed, that there's not enough positions available for them, and that's because of a misallocation of resources and an inefficient system. So you've got a system that's not working well enough. And what you're asking doctors and hospitals and companies who sell medical equipment, medicines, who says, buy into this new system because it's going to work better. And there's distrust. And the problem is, the worry is that if this system, NHI is pushed through, and this is the only way to access health as a doctor or a company selling health products, the only way to do it is to deal with government. We might see a collapse of the system instead of a rising of it. It is a big gamble. I really liked what Adrian Gore, the head of Discovery, he sent an email to all Discovery clients, and he said the way that we improve a system is by improving public health, not dumbing down private health.
Not the bell curve, let's bring people up.
Right, so we're going to need to wait to see how it happens, but certainly what should be happening is they need to listen to doctors and hospitals and health insurers because they have experience in running these and
they do it every day, under duress very often, so they will figure out ways to make it work. Is this going to be a case of legal battle before we settle on where medical aid fits in, or do you foresee, and there would have to be forward thinking. I would imagine the Discoveries of the world are thinking very clearly now about how they're going to reposition themselves in that sense, and hopefully buying into a change. Maybe not necessarily this, but a shift. How do you see this actually landing? Will medical aid disappear, or will it be a different version of?
So I think, like, I can only go according to what the medical aides have been saying, what I've read about what they're saying, but there's a need. No one is against universal healthcare. They want to be part of the discussion. The complaint has been that government hasn't taken their suggestions, their inputs seriously enough, and have just aimed to push this bill through without actually talking through it and listening to them. My hope is that, as I said with electricity, that the way this works is by government, private companies working together to build a good system. And as you say, there's nothing wrong with South Africa. We have the best minds, best healthcare, great entrepreneurs, all the ingredients for success. It just needs to work together cohesively and not as an electioneering system that's pushed through just in order to get it done in time for the vote. But again, I could be completely wrong about that. We could see that the government has a great plan here and it's put into play. I certainly hope that's the case. We want a universal healthcare, but we just need a healthcare system that works.
We just need something that works for everybody. Don't forget, you do have a vote, but you also have a voice. You can ask questions. You can engage with your own medical aid. You can have your voice heard at this vital stage of what could be a major, major turning point for the country. I love the fact that we are even having this conversation, as diverse as it is. I love the fact that we are talking about universal healthcare, because so many South Africans do not have access, and that does need to change.